what determines nobility in the sense of merit or worth? It's a side question in the play Electra, written by Euripides. The premise of the play is Electra is a princess who's been married off to a peasant by her stepfather, so that any children she might have wouldn't be a legitimate threat to the stepfather's throne. And the peasant, oddly enough, is from a family of nobility, though they've fallen on hard times, and the peasant never gets a name in the play. And he takes the decision, even though he's married to Electra and she recognizes him as her husband, that he won't sleep with Electra out of recognition of her nobility. And Orestes, I think that's how you say it, Electra's brother, has come back in the play, and the play is going to deal with Electra and Orestes murdering their mother in retribution for their father's death. But there's a side tangent where Orestes is discussing this peasant and how he is a noble person, how to recognize that in a person. And I thought there was some value in it. Orestes goes, there is no sure mark to recognize a man's worth, for human nature hath in it an element of confusion. For instance, I have seen ere now the son of a noble sire prove himself a worthless knave, and virtuous children sprung up from evil parents. Likewise, dearth in a rich man's spirit, and in a poor man's frame a mighty soul. By what standard then shall we rightly judge these things? By wealth? An evil test to use. By poverty then? Nay, poverty suffers from this, that it teaches a man to play the villain from necessity. To martial prowess must I turn? But who could pronounce who is the valiant man merely from the look of his spear? Better is it to leave these matters to themselves without troubling. For here is a man of no account in Argos, with no family reputation to boast. One of common herd, proved a very hero. A truce to your folly, ye self-deceivers, swollen with idle fancies. Learn to judge men by their converse, and by their habits decide who are noble. Such are they who rule aright both states and families, while those forms of flesh, devoid of intellect, are but figureheads in the marketplace. The strong arm again no more than the weak awakes the battle shock, for this depends on the natural courage. Well, absent or present, Agamemnon's son, whose business brings us here, deserves this of us. So let us accept the lodgings of this house. Orestes then turns to his servants and says, O Sirs, go within. A humble host who does his best in preference to a wealthy man for me. And so I thankfully accept this peasant's proffered welcome, though I could have preferred that thy brother were conducting me to share his fortune in his halls. This sounds really nice, but there's a couple weird things. He accepts the peasant's hospitality and ends it with saying, I wish it was, the prince who is welcoming. Oddly enough, the prince is himself. He's talking about himself. A little weird. And then the nobility of the peasant is determined by his preference to nobility, who are just those heads in marketplaces that were brought up, who are just there. And so the actions of the noble are based on their treatment of people who are just born into nobility. It's a little weird, but the questions about judging a man by its habits rather than their title, there's definitely some worth in there.